There is a silent, yet commanding force within each of us, a quiet general who gives orders without words, whose voice is heard only through action, through the movements we make, the paths we choose, and the ones we avoid. Your body is a loyal soldier, obediently following this invisible command. Yet, most remain unaware that their greatest victories, or their most devastating defeats, are born in the subtle battlefield of the mind. I have seen this truth etched into countless lives. The body moves not by chance, not by randomness, but through clear, precise signals from within. If your mind is scattered, anxious, or indulgent, your body will reflect chaos, confusion, and weakness. But if your mind is clear, your intent sharpened, and your discipline unwavering, your body becomes a vessel of focused power, effortlessly carrying out your intentions. I have never seen a general victorious on the battlefield whose mind was undisciplined in the quiet solitude of his thoughts. For war begins long before the clash of swords. It begins in the calm before the storm, in the silence between breaths, in the moments of clarity amidst the chaos. If you master this silent domain, victory becomes an inevitable consequence. Many misunderstand discipline as harsh, punishing, or restrictive, a chain around the ankle. They see it as deprivation, as self-inflicted pain. But discipline is the opposite. Discipline is freedom. Discipline is clarity. Discipline is the steady hand that guides the mind, and the mind, in turn, guides the body. Your body is the visible manifestation of your inner order or your inner chaos. There are no exceptions. Before a single arrow flies, before the sound of marching boots, the war has already been won or lost within. Those who triumph are simply those who have prepared the ground within their minds. They have cultivated discipline, not to suffer, but to create strength. They have trained their thoughts, not to be rigid, but to become unshakable. They have forged a stillness that cannot be disturbed by noise or temptation. Consider this carefully. Every victory you seek outside yourself is first achieved within yourself. Your life, your actions, your health, your relationships, your success, each mirrors your internal mastery or your internal defeat. If you wish to control your outcomes, you must first control your impulses. You must discipline your thoughts, your desires, your fears, and your doubts. In my time, I taught generals that war is won not by the size of their army, nor by the strength of their weapons, but by their capacity to command their own mind. The disciplined mind can conquer empires with ease. It can overcome circumstances that others deem impossible. It can bend reality to its quiet but insistent will. Ask yourself, what message is your mind sending your body right now? Are you commanding strength or weakness, clarity or confusion, discipline or indulgence? The answer is not hidden. It is openly displayed in every action you take. When you learn that the mind leads and the body follows, that the body is merely a loyal servant, you have discovered a timeless truth. But when you realize that the mind itself follows discipline, that every thought, every decision, every action springs from the clarity of disciplined intent, you become unstoppable. This is the path to mastery. It is not dramatic, nor is it glamorous. It is quiet, consistent, relentless. The greatest generals are not those who shout orders, but those whose commands are clear and understood in silence. Your greatest battles will never be witnessed by others, yet they are the most decisive of all. The war for control begins within, and those who master this internal warfare win without ever needing to fight. This is the essence of victory. The body follows the mind, and the mind follows discipline. I have observed countless soldiers, commanders, emperors, and common men, and I have seen one truth remain unchanging. Those whose minds wander without focus find themselves trapped in lives they did not choose. They stumble from moment to moment, reacting rather than commanding, surrendering their destiny to chance. Yet those who cultivate discipline in the hidden depths of their thoughts seize control of their lives. Their bodies, their actions, their very destinies align with their inner intent. They become architects of their existence. Understand clearly, your body is a mirror, reflecting precisely the quality of your internal state. If you harbor doubt, hesitation, or chaos in your thoughts, it emerges visibly in every movement you make. Your steps falter, your hands tremble, your gaze drifts uncertainly. But if your mind is disciplined, clear, focused, and unwavering, then your body moves with certainty, precision, and effortless power. Every action becomes deliberate, every step meaningful, every gesture decisive. This is the nature of human beings. We cannot hide our true inner state. Even the most carefully crafted mask will eventually fall away. The disciplined mind requires no mask. It is naked in its clarity and strength, visible to all, yet vulnerable to none. In the chaos of battle, when fear threatens to grip the hearts of lesser men, the disciplined mind stands unmoved, anchored in quiet certainty. This internal command, this disciplined clarity, is not easily attained. It is cultivated daily, hourly, moment by moment. Discipline is not something you impose upon yourself through mere force of will. It is a quality you nurture and develop patiently. You build discipline through small choices, through habits carefully formed, through decisions calmly made. You cannot command an army if you cannot command yourself. You cannot master life's great battles if you lose control in life's smallest moments. Reflect on your own life and consider this truth carefully. How often have you made promises to yourself only to break them? How frequently have you committed to discipline yet allowed comfort to lure you back into familiar weakness? Every broken promise is a silent defeat. Every commitment honored is a quiet victory. Discipline is measured not in grand gestures, but in daily, consistent actions. A single day of discipline, repeated endlessly, becomes a lifetime of strength. When I trained warriors, I first taught them to master silence. Silence is the birthplace of discipline. It is where scattered thoughts settle, where noise and distractions fade, revealing clarity. Silence is the quiet space in which the mind sharpens its blade, preparing it for decisive action. Those who cannot endure silence cannot sustain discipline. Noise is their comfort, distraction their refuge. But noise breeds confusion, and confusion breeds defeat. Consider the general who shouts orders in a panic. His soldiers scatter, uncertain and afraid. But the general who speaks softly, with absolute confidence and quiet authority, inspires loyalty, clarity, and courage. So it is with your own mind. If your internal commands are clear, calm, and disciplined, your body will obey with unwavering loyalty. Remember always, discipline is not punishment. It is respect. Respect for yourself, for your goals, for your purpose. It is the highest form of self-regard, the truest expression of self-love. To discipline your mind is to honor your potential, to fulfill your promise, and to become precisely who you were meant to be. It is not deprivation. It is empowerment. When discipline becomes your ally, your body becomes your most trusted servant. No longer will you fight internal battles, torn between conflicting desires. Instead, you will move with certainty, clarity, and purpose. Each step you take will reinforce your inner strength. Each action will confirm your command over yourself. In my time, warriors learned quickly that victory on the battlefield depended entirely on the internal victories they achieved long before the battle began. Today, your life is no different. Victory, whether in business, relationships, health, or wealth, follows the same ancient pattern. Control the mind through discipline, and the body follows without resistance. Master this truth, and you master yourself. Master yourself, and there is nothing beyond your reach. Your discipline is your destiny. You may train your body endlessly, lift weight, run fast, build skill, and yet if your mind remains undisciplined, the results will be fleeting. This is why so many begin with energy and end in collapse. The failure was never in their effort, but in their inconsistency. Discipline is what carries you through when motivation disappears. It is the invisible force that moves you forward when nothing else can. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is fire. And the fire burns only if you tend it with care. Do not wait for conditions to be perfect. Do not wait for inspiration to find you. Do not wait for someone to lead you. You are already the general of your own life. And your mind, whether trained or neglected, already leads your body somewhere. Ask yourself, is it leading you toward purpose or toward regret? I have seen men lose their way not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked command. Their thoughts drifted like leaves in the wind, no anchor, no aim, no order. And in that drift, their actions became scattered. Their days slipped by unnoticed. Their strength faded. Their potential remained buried beneath noise and doubt. A disciplined mind does not chase. It chooses. It moves with deliberation. It says no to what is unnecessary and yes only to what serves the path. Most people suffer not from lack of desire, but from lack of clarity. They do not know what they truly want, so they pursue everything and accomplish nothing. Discipline is the knife that cuts through this fog. It removes the excess. It reveals the essential. It forces a decision. Who will I be? You cannot become strong without sacrifice. You cannot move forward without leaving something behind. Discipline is the gatekeeper of every worthy achievement. It demands that you choose discomfort today so that you may have power tomorrow. That you delay pleasure now so that you may own it fully later. The undisciplined seek escape from discomfort. The disciplined walk straight into it and find strength within. The body follows the mind, but the mind, left to its own devices, will follow whatever is loudest, whatever is easiest, whatever is most tempting. That is why discipline is not merely helpful. It is essential. It is the commander of the commander. It is the root of direction, the source of strength, the reason behind endurance. It is not glamorous. It is not seen, but it determines everything. I once stood atop a battlefield where a smaller force overcame a larger one, not through superior weapons, but through superior will. Their movements were not frantic, they were fluid. Their eyes did not dart, they locked forward. Their breath was calm, their formation tight. That was not chance. That was the discipline of the mind made visible through the body. That was internal order, crushing external chaos. This is your battlefield now, not one of swords and fire, but of habits, focus, and time. If you lose the morning, you lose the day. If you break your word to yourself once, it becomes easier to break it again. If you make excuses, you teach your body to obey fear. But if you rise with clarity, act with consistency, and end each day with intention, then you win. Quietly, repeatedly, completely. The world may not notice your discipline. It may not applaud your effort, but the results will speak for you. your health, your posture, your words, your energy, your success. These are the soldiers marching behind your mind. They announce your mastery without sound. Command your mind through discipline, and the body will carry you toward victories no one believed possible. Discipline begins long before action. It begins with awareness, when you catch the first flicker of distraction and bring yourself back. When you recognize that comfort is whispering and choose not to listen. That moment is where strength is forged, not in the loud, visible acts of courage, but in the quiet refusal to betray your own standard. If your mind flinches at discomfort, your body will hesitate in the moment of need. But if your mind learns to sit in discomfort, to breathe in it, to remain unshaken, then when the challenge arrives, you do not merely survive it. You respond with calm. You move with precision. You execute without drama. The undisciplined are always reacting. Their lives are a chain of emotional impulses dressed as decisions. One moment they run toward pleasure, the next they run from fear. Their energy is scattered. Their presence is thin. They exhaust themselves chasing results, never realizing the real war is internal. They build momentum for days, then destroy it in minutes. They rise with motivation, but fall with the smallest resistance. It is not fate that undoes them. It is the lack of a trained mind. Discipline is not rigidity. It is flexibility under command. It is being able to adapt without being pulled off course. A disciplined mind absorbs uncertainty, like armor absorbs impact. It bends, but it does not break. It does not argue with reality. It aligns with it, then acts within it. Those who fail to understand this chase life like a scattered army, always fighting, always losing, never knowing why. They believe effort is enough. But effort without direction is chaos. A storm expends energy, but only a river carves stone. Let your mind become that river, sharpened not by force, but by focus. Let it flow with consistency and patience. Let it cut through the noise, and then your body will not need to ask what to do. It will already be in motion because the command has long been given. Discipline does not arrive with grand declarations. It arrives with quiet repetition, the same wake-up time, the same task, done without applause, the same choice to say no when no one is watching. The world celebrates outcomes, but it is these uncelebrated repetitions that build the architecture of strength. The ones who endure are not those who shout the loudest about their goals, but those who return to the smallest habits with the most consistency. In the mind of the undisciplined, every day is a negotiation. They wake up wondering how they feel. They debate whether the task is worth doing. They search for a reason to act, and in that hesitation, the day escapes them. A disciplined mind does not negotiate. It executes. It does not consult mood or weather. It does not seek convenience. It acts because the decision has already been made. There is no discussion, only direction. But this discipline is not cold. It is not harsh. It is rooted in clarity, not cruelty. It does not punish. It liberates. It simplifies life. When you no longer argue with yourself, when your path is not up for debate, every step becomes lighter. The weight is gone. You do not carry uncertainty with you. You move forward, and your body, unburdened by doubt, moves with you. A man who controls his habits controls his momentum. Momentum, once established, reduces the need for willpower. The path begins to carry you, but the beginning, the first movements, require force. That force must come from discipline. Not the discipline you perform in public, but the one you uphold in private. where no praise follows, where no reward is immediate, where no one will ever know but you. That is where the real war is fought, not against others, not against time, but against the weaker version of yourself that whispers just loud enough to delay you. That version must be silenced, not with rage, but with repetition, not with self-hate, but with self-command. And in time, that weaker voice fades. It grows quiet, not because it was forced into silence, but because it was ignored long enough to lose its power. What remains is stillness. And from that stillness, movement flows, not erratic, but deliberate, not loud, but unstoppable. Once the mind learns to obey discipline, a strange thing happens. Peace emerges. Not the peace of idleness, but the peace of certainty. You no longer waste energy questioning every move. You no longer chase approval or fear judgment. Your days begin with clarity and end with completion. The noise of indecision fades, and in its place, you hear the sound of your own footsteps, measured, grounded, purposeful. This kind of peace is rare. Most never taste it. They live in reaction, always adjusting to the external, never commanding the internal. Their mood rises and falls with the world. Their goals change with trends. Their actions dissolve under pressure. But the one who lives by discipline does not drift. He chooses once and honors that choice 1,000 times, not out of stubbornness, but out of principle. Principle is the spine of discipline. Without it, rules are hollow. Habits are temporary. Strength collapses. But when every action is rooted in something deeper, when it aligns with who you are becoming, then even the most difficult path becomes sustainable. You are no longer trying to force yourself to change. You are simply living in alignment with the truth you've already claimed. This is why discipline must be personal. Borrowed standards will break under pressure. But when your discipline is built on values you've chosen, it holds. You do not need to be told what to do. You already know. The internal compass is set, and each decision becomes a quiet confirmation of who you are, not who you hope to be, who you already are. The body obeys the mind, but the mind needs a foundation deeper than willpower. It needs belief. It needs identity. When your identity becomes inseparable from your discipline, then nothing can shake you. You do not resist the old version of yourself. You outgrow it. You do not fight distraction. You simply stop feeding it. The battlefield shrinks because you stop giving energy to the enemy within. This is the transformation that goes unseen. Others may notice changes on the outside, your posture, your results, your consistency, but they will never understand the war you stopped fighting, because it was never about the world. It was always about whether you would keep your own word. And when you finally do, day after day, you realize how little the world can take from someone who commands himself. You begin to see time differently, no longer as something to kill, but as something to honor. Every minute becomes a soldier. You place each one with care. You do not waste them wandering between distractions, because you know the battle is not won in hours. It is won in minutes, repeated. The undisciplined believe time is abundant, so they squander it. The disciplined know it is finite, so they sharpen it. You no longer ask, "What do I feel like doing?" You ask, "What must be done?" And then you do it. This is not about becoming robotic. It is about becoming intentional. A wandering life is not a free life. It is a life enslaved to impulse. But when your movements are chosen, when your days are carved from deliberate thought, then even in constraint, you are free. Because you are no longer ruled by chaos. You have structure. And within structure, there is power. Discipline is not the removal of freedom. It is its foundation. When your day has form, you are not pulled by every craving. When your routines are firm, you are not paralyzed by indecision. When your priorities are clear, you are not lost in noise. Most people never realize how heavy their own indecision is. They carry it everywhere. It slows them, it drains them, and then they wonder why they are tired without having moved. But you, when your mind is disciplined, move with less friction, because the path is already drawn. Because you don't waste energy choosing again and again, you simply begin. And that simplicity is strength. That structure is clarity. That discipline is freedom. Even your rest becomes deeper. You sleep with a clean mind, not one tormented by tasks left undone, not one cluttered with guilt, but one that knows, I did what I said I would do. That is the rarest peace of all, not the peace of comfort, but the peace of self-respect. And in that peace, new energy is born, not hype, not excitement, but something far more reliable, momentum, the invisible force that carries the disciplined further than talent ever could. Momentum is earned in silence. It is not a reward for one great effort, but the natural result of thousands of small ones. Most never feel it because they stop too soon. They interrupt their own rhythm with excuses. They pause to question progress instead of trusting the process. But the disciplined keep moving. They do not need to feel inspired every day. They simply return to the path again and again until motion becomes identity. This is when the body truly transforms, not just in shape, but in spirit. Movements become efficient, reactions become sharp, energy becomes stable. The body begins to anticipate the mind's commands without resistance. You reach a point where effort no longer feels like effort. Discipline, once a struggle, becomes instinct. You no longer need to force yourself to do the right thing. You simply are the kind of person who does it. This is why discipline must be internalized. If it remains external, driven by fear, validation, or pressure, it will always collapse under stress. But when it becomes part of your being, it does not waver with difficulty. Discipline is not about force. It is about alignment. When your actions align with your beliefs, consistency becomes natural. Not easy, but natural. The world outside will try to disrupt that alignment. It will tempt you with shortcuts. It will distract you with noise. It will suggest that your standards are too high, that your path is too narrow. But remember, the disciplined do not chase validation. They embody it. They do not seek permission to be excellent. They choose to be, regardless of opinion. And that choice, made in silence, reshapes the course of their lives. There will be moments when you are alone in this path. Others will not understand your refusal to compromise. They will mock your routine, your simplicity, your control. Let them. You are not here to be understood. You are here to become unshakable. Because when the storm comes, and it always does, those without discipline will fall first. They will panic. They will break. They will run. But you will remain. Not because you are fearless, but because you are trained. Not because you are stronger, but because you are steadier. You have faced the storm within, and you did not flinch. And in that stillness, in that clarity, your next move will be made, not out of emotion, but out of wisdom. Not to prove anything, but because it is the right move. This is how you win, quietly, consistently, absolutely. There is a moment in every journey where the initial motivation fades, where the rewards are not yet visible, and where the only thing left to stand on is discipline. This is where most turn back. They convince themselves it wasn't worth it, or worse, they blame circumstances. But the disciplined know better. They understand that progress is not always visible, that growth often happens in silence. They do not demand immediate results. They demand consistency from themselves. This is the desert between effort and outcome, a dry, unremarkable stretch of time where nothing seems to move, no applause, no results, just repetition. The undisciplined view this as failure. But those who endure it quietly begin to understand. This is not failure. This is the forging. This is where identity is built, where the sharpness of the mind is tested, and where endurance is no longer an idea, but a lived experience. Every disciplined person eventually walks through this desert. The difference is that they keep walking. They do not sprint. They do not collapse. They maintain their pace. And because of that, they cross to the other side. This is not a place for talent. This is not a place for excitement. This is the domain of discipline alone. In the world outside, people look for signs that it's working, signs that they are succeeding. But in the world within, the disciplined do not require signs. They rely on structure. They trust the plan. They don't ask whether it's working every day. They know that if they are showing up, the result is inevitable. Not because of luck, but because of math. Repetition compounds. Clarity compounds. Every act of discipline is an investment. Small, invisible, but compounding over time until it becomes undeniable. This is the reason discipline is quiet. It doesn't need to prove itself early. It doesn't need to advertise its potential. It builds, it stacks, it sharpens. And one day, when the rest are still asking how to begin, the disciplined are already too far ahead to be caught. And yet, there is no pride, no boasting, just quiet work, just daily clarity, just the knowledge that nothing was given and nothing was wasted, that every step was chosen, that every breath was deliberate, that every moment served the whole. That is the power of discipline, not in flashes of greatness, but in the way it turns ordinary days into the foundation of extraordinary lives. There will come a day when others look at your life and call it effortless. They'll see the calm in your decisions, the confidence in your steps, the strength in your silence, and they'll assume it came naturally. They won't see the hours of resistance, the mornings you rose without energy, the days you stayed the course while no one watched. They'll praise the outcome, but they will not understand the cost. That is the irony of discipline. Its truest victories are invisible. The disciplined do not wait to feel ready. Readiness is a trap. It waits for comfort, for motivation, for a perfect alignment of circumstances. But nothing moves under those terms. The disciplined act in the absence of readiness. They begin when it's cold, when it's unclear, when the task feels heavier than usual. Because they are not loyal to ease. They are loyal to execution. And that loyalty begins with language. The way you speak to yourself either builds the path forward or tears it apart. The undisciplined speak in soft escapes. Just this once, I'll start tomorrow, I've done enough. These words are the first cracks in the foundation. They seem harmless, but repeated enough, they destroy consistency. Discipline demands different words, quiet, firm ones. Now, again, keep going. These are not motivational slogans. They are commands. They do not ask. They declare, "In battle, I taught men that the first to break formation invites defeat." It doesn't matter how strong the individual is. If the line is broken, the structure collapses. So it is with your habits. Break the chain once, and the mind begins to bargain. Break it twice, and the mind begins to doubt. But hold the line. even when tired, even when uncertain, and the body learns obedience. The structure holds, and over time, that structure becomes identity. People often confuse identity with personality. They believe identity is fixed, inherited, shaped by the past. But identity is choice, repeated until it becomes truth. Discipline does not ask who you were, it defines who you are becoming. And the moment you act in alignment with that, you begin to shift. Not in public, not in one dramatic change, but in the smallest internal confirmations. I said I would, and I did. That is how you become someone others can't explain. They won't know how you remain calm in chaos, how you deliver when others delay, how you move forward without hype. But you will know. You will know because you chose this, you built this, you became this, not by accident, but by discipline. You'll notice something else, something almost sacred, once discipline becomes part of you. Time stretches. Days feel longer, not because you rush through them, but because you command them. You begin to notice moments that used to slip past you, how you breathe before you speak, how you sit before you act, how you think before you respond. The pace slows down, not from laziness, but from control. You are no longer dragged by life. You are directing it. This control is not loud. It is not performative. It does not demand to be noticed. But it is unshakable. You begin to move differently. You carry yourself differently. Not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. Because you no longer chase discipline. It is no longer something outside of you. It lives in your posture, in your choices, in your tone, in your restraint. People will ask what changed, and you will struggle to answer because there was no single moment. There was no dramatic shift, just days stacking on days, promises kept, standards upheld, the decision to keep going when it was easier not to. There is no story to tell, only the weight of repetition and the results it quietly delivered. This is the phase where solitude becomes power. You no longer fear being alone with your thoughts. You do not rush to fill the silence. You sit in it, calmly, because you've made peace with yourself. And that peace, born from discipline, becomes your protection in a noisy world. You don't react to every opinion. You don't need every invitation. You don't chase every opportunity. You move with a filter. Does this align with my path? The answer is either yes or no. There is no maybe, because maybes waste energy, and discipline is not just about output, it's about preservation. It protects your focus, your time, your energy. It removes what doesn't belong, not out of anger, but out of clarity. You begin to see how rare this clarity is, how many people walk around with no guard over their mind. Every emotion becomes a command. Every distraction becomes a detour. They have routines, but no structure, goals, but no ground, movement, but no direction. They confuse motion with progress, noise with meaning, effort with mastery. But you don't, not anymore. You understand that power does not come from speed, but from precision. That consistency beats intensity. That doing the right thing quietly for a long time is more valuable than doing the loud thing once. You begin to take pride in the invisible. Not for recognition, but because you've learned to recognize your own integrity. And nothing feels better than knowing you can trust yourself. And when you reach this place, this rare inner ground where discipline no longer feels like resistance, but like rhythm, you begin to operate from a different depth. You're no longer climbing out of chaos every morning. You're building forward from stability. You're not drained by decisions because your values have already made them. You don't need to remind yourself who you are every day. You're living it. Quietly, steadily, completely. The body becomes sharper because it no longer fights the mind. The mind becomes stiller because it no longer fights itself. There is harmony now, not perfection. Discipline is not the absence of struggle, but harmony. A unified direction, an internal order that no external force can easily undo. People search for confidence in results, but the most unshakable confidence comes from consistency. You do not need certainty about the outcome when you have certainty in your behavior, and that certainty makes you immune to noise. Trends come and go, excuses tempt and fade, people doubt, quit, return, and collapse. But you remain. You're not chasing momentum anymore. You are the momentum. You're not hoping for strength. You've become strong through repetition. You don't need motivation to get moving. You've become the kind of person who moves. This is why the greatest form of discipline is not control over others. It's control over self. The ability to keep your own word, to manage your own energy, to act without applause. It is the rarest form of power because it cannot be given. It cannot be faked. It can only be earned. And when you earn it, you start to lead, not through volume, but through example. People feel the difference in you. They recognize the gravity in your words. You do not need to convince them. You simply live the standard. And that quiet, lived truth carries more weight than any performance ever could. Eventually, even your goals shift. You're no longer trying to prove something to the world. You're refining something within. You're not trying to arrive, you're trying to become. And the path, once difficult, becomes sacred. Because now, discipline is not a tool. It is not a sacrifice. It is the way. It is your way. You no longer ask how long it will take. You ask how deeply you can go. Because the deeper you go, the freer you become. Not from struggle, but from internal conflict. Not from the world, but from the noise within. And in that depth, there is no finish line, no applause, no ceremony, just silence. And in that silence, you are complete.